What's up everybody, Camro here, and welcome to part 23 of my How to Make a Pokemon Game tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to be looking at Pokemon with multiple forms. We're going to be talking about how to change forms of our Pokemon, we're going to be talking about how to define the forms of our Pokemon, and then later in the episode, we're going to make our own Alolan Pokemon. With that said, let's get into it. So here I'm looking at the map Birth Island, which is a map that comes with the base version of Pokemon Essentials, and in the middle here, we have a Deoxys, which you can fight and then capture, and around it are a bunch of Meteors that will change the form of Deoxys if you interact with them. This is one of the ways to change a form for a Pokemon. It's probably the most straightforward. Actually, no, there's other ways that are really straightforward too. I'll show you those in a little bit, but first, let's look at the Meteors. Basically, what the Meteors do, logically, is they check to see if you have a Deoxys in your party. If you don't, they just say, hey, it's a regular-looking rock. If you do have a Deoxys in your party, then it says, hey, Deoxys is reacting to the meteor. Would you like to bring it closer? If you select no, then you say, hey, you leave it alone. If you say yes, then what it does is it does a little check here with the scripts. It checks every Pokemon in your party, and if there is a Pokemon in your party that is Deoxys, then it sets its form to 0, 1, 2, or 3, depending. And let's take a look at Deoxys in the script now, because all these rocks just set its form to 1, 2, or 3, or 0. So let's see what 0, 1, 2, and 3 are. So let's just Control F Deoxys. Cool. So you want to go into your Pokemon _ multiple forms script, and then just Control F all the Pokemon that you want to look at for their forms. So I want to Control F Deoxys. There is a lot of interesting stuff going on here for Deoxys' multiple forms. So what it does first is it checks its base stats. If it's 0, then that's its normal form, which are the base stats that are defined in the Pokemon.txt. But if its form changes to 1, 2, or 3, then it changes the base stats. So in attack form, these are its base stats, where it has higher attack. In defense form, it has higher defense and special defense. You know, in its speed form, it has higher speed. Cool. It also changes the EVs that yield when you defeat it. I find that, you know, this is just an extra option if you choose. I don't know if it's super necessary to change the EVs for all your multiple forms, but hey, you have the tools to do so if you want, which is very nice. You can also change the move list of your Pokemon. So there is no change to the move list if it's form 0, but if it's form 1, then it learns these moves. Form 2, it learns these moves. So it like learns the moves at different order. So like Psycho Boost, you know, Hyper Beam here. This one doesn't learn Hyper Beam. This one learns Counter instead, you know. It's very interesting. So we can look at all these multiple forms that have been defined and then make our own, which is really cool. So for example, if you want to change the type, you can look at something like cast form, where it does change the type. So what I highly recommend doing if you want to really delve into multiple forms is just skim and scan through this script in particular and see how a lot of these are defined. Like, yeah, cast form. Its form 1 changes its type 1 to fire, and I guess it changes type 2 to fire. Anyway, so this is just a really great thing to scroll through. And one Pokemon in particular that will help us with our Alolan form Pokemon is Shellos. Shellos and Gastrodon are really interesting because they change form depending on where you encounter them. So for our Alolan Pokemon, we could say, hey, it will be an Alolan variety Pokemon if you encounter it on this map. So the way that this works is get form on creation, and then it searches for a list of map IDs. So what we can do actually is start working on our own Alolan Pokemon right now if we want. Also, multipleforms.copy, what it does, it applies Shellos to Gastrodon as well. So this is just a small little function that they used so that we didn't have to copy and paste it twice. So Shellos and Gastrodon both follow the same rules. They both have the same map IDs. But let's copy this. Whoop. Multipleforms.copy. Nice. And then scroll down a little bit here. Boom. And then what I want to do is make a Lowland Sandshrew. And we want it to be of the Alolan form if you encounter it on a map. Which map? Let's see. So I actually have a route here called Route 2, which is map ID ID1. But then I also made another route right next to it that's connected to it of ID 83. So if we encounter a Sandshrew, let me open our scripts again. If we encounter a Sandshrew on map ID 83, we can just delete all these others, then it will be in form 1, otherwise it'll be form 0 by default. So that's pretty cool. But we also want to do some other things, like we want to change its type. So let's scroll down here and look at what Rotom did. Rotom does a lot of whole different type changes, so we can really just copy that and then modify it for our own. And every time you want to do an additional change for the multiple forms, be sure that you follow the proper formatting here with the commas and the brackets. So let's see. So we want to do a comma here, enter, paste, and then delete, because now that's the end. So let's change it so type 1, when form is 1, we can just delete all these others too. Oh, actually, no. I deleted an extra end that I didn't want to delete. Okay, cool. Boop. So when it's 0, it's normal form, but when it's 1, it's Alolan, and its first type is Ice. Cool. And then we can do this again, but with type 2, because since it's a Lowland Sandshrew, we can make it so its type 2 is Steel. Cool. So there's a lot of whole cool stuff you can do here. Like if you just scroll down, you can see all the Pokemon and how they did it. Like they changed their base stats, they changed all their forms. Like you can also, for example, change the form of a Pokemon if they're holding an item or if they know a move. Like right here, get form for Giratina. It specifically has different map IDs, and if it's holding the item, then it changes its form, which is really crazy, which is really interesting. But like Arceus is a really good one, where it changes its form if it's holding the fist plate. So it's form 1 to form 18, depending on the specific item it's holding. So that one's really complex, so if you want to look into that. But yeah, another one that I want to show you actually is really cool. Darmanitan. Darmanitan actually has a form change that applies in 2 different scripts. So in Pokemon Multiple Forms, the way that it works is if it's in form 0, then it's normal. If it's in Zen mode, then it changes its base stats, it changes its type to Psychic, and it changes the EV yield. But this doesn't show you how it actually changes its form, because in-game it changes its form when its health falls. It changes its form when its health falls below 50%. Excuse me, sorry. So Control-Shift-F, Darmanitan. You can actually go into the Pokebattle_Battler script as well, and take a look at how some of the alternate forms are defined here. So something like Darmanitan, Zen mode, basically, if the species is Darmanitan, its ability is Zen mode, and its health is below half, which is total HP over 2, dot floor, basically rounding down. If your ability is Zen mode, and your health is below half, then it changes your form to 1. Otherwise, your form is 0. And then, at the end of the battle, it resets its form back to 0 when the battle's over. But this is really interesting. So you can have Pokemon change their ability if they have less than half health, or, you know, if this or if that. So the Pokebattle_Battler script is also really interesting to look at if you want to have more complex multiple forms. So like Keldeo changes form, you know, Genesect, like all these Pokemon are doing a whole bunch of form changes. It's really cool. But yeah, back off of that tangent, because I think I've talked about all the possible ways to change forms now. For our Alolan Pokemon, though, we are most interested in it being a different form when we encounter it. So let's go back to Sandshrew. If I could spell, that would be very nice. Cool. So Sandshrew. If the map is 83, then it will be form 1. Otherwise, it's form 0. If it's form 0, then it's normal. If it's form 1, its type ID is its type is Ice for type 1, type 2 Steel. So we can also change the moves if we want. We can change the EV yield. We can change like height and weight, I believe, are other ways to change it. It's basically an extension, an idea of the Mega Evolutions that we talked about in the last one. So we can change its ability too. But yeah, let's just do this for now. Let's make it really basic. We could go more in depth and change his moves, but right now this is just showing you that you can do it. So let's just keep it basic right now and just say, hey, there's new Ice Steel type. So the next thing that I need to cover then is the art for our Alolan Pokemon. So it's easy to define it, but when we run into it in battle, how will we see it? So what I've gone ahead and done is, if you go into the description, there is a resized Gen 7 sprite pack for those using Elite Battle System. If you're not using Elite Battle System though, and besides the actual place where I downloaded this pack, is from the Sun and Moon Battler Sprite Pack on Relic Castle. The user here, Amethyst, has compiled a huge collection of the Sun and Moon sprites, and it's very nice and it's very complete, and you can see all of them there. Another good place, these will both be in the description, by the way. Another good place is the Sun and Moon Sprite Project from Smogon, the people that did the X and Y Sprite Project. You can go into their Excel chart and see all the progress on their Sun and Moon sprites. So that's very, very nice. And then the other sprite that you'd want is the icon sprite. So here on Cerebi, you can actually go and look at the Pokemon and see that there's the icons right here for the regular and Alolan. And then you can just right-click, open image in new tab, and then save this little boy as the starting point for your icon. Ultimately, you would want to edit it so the formatting is proper, which I will show you now. So let's open. So here we have 27 and 27_1. So what I did was I just opened this guy. Here's our original. And then I go up to the one that I downloaded, which is the little baby one. Take it all, paste it in, and it's smaller right now. So what you have to do actually is transform, scale, resize this to be 200%. Ta-da! And then you can just, drop it in and get rid of the other one. So that's what I did to make the new icons. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I actually have gone and imported our art already for Alolan Sandshrew and Alolan Sandslash. So let's go into our project and take a look at those, and then let's run the game and run into our Alolan Pokemon. I'm not gonna waste too much more time now. But yeah, here's 0_27.png and 0_27_1.png. The thing is right now though, similar to the Mega Evolutions in the last episode, this Pokemon will probably appear floating, and I'll edit it right now so that way it won't, and I'll also explain to you why. So, the reason a lot of these Pokemon will appear floating if you just throw them in without editing them is because they use, like, the different forms all use the same height values. So, if this Pokemon is not the same resolution or, like, placement as the original form, then it will appear floating. So right now what I've opened here is the original form of Sandshrew and the Alolan form of Sandshrew, and I'm going to do a little bit of editing so that way it doesn't appear floating in our game, and then we'll finally get to see it in-game. It's going to be really good. It's going to be great. So the original form of Sandshrew has to be a perfect square, is 39 by 39 pixels. So let's crop this guy, image, canvas size, crop him down to 39 by 39, and then let's move him in to frame. So he's a little bit bigger actually, so what we want to do is actually increase the canvas size so it is a perfect square, but it also maintains the same height. I mean, the same positioning as the original. So let's do like 46 by 46. And then our original Sandshrew is on the bottom of the frame, so let's make this guy on the bottom. Cool. So save that, and now let's see it in-game. Cool. So now I've wasted enough time talking about all the art and stuff. Now let's take a look at our Alolan Pokemon in its truest form in-game. So this is the Route 2 that has regular Sandshrews, which I will show off right now. So there's our regular Sandshrew, because we encountered it on a map that is not of ID 83, or the IDs that we defined. So now if I run away and then run into this bush, it should be Alolan, which is pretty cool. There we go. So once again, to reiterate, this Pokemon is a different form depending on where you find it. If you find it on the map of the ID that we specified, it'll be one way, otherwise it'll be the other way. And now let me show off another thing that's really cool. The way that it works is Sandshrew evolves into Sandslash at level 22. So if we catch an Alolan Sandshrew and then get it up to level 22, it will evolve into Alolan Sandslash. The reason for this is Pokemon maintain their form number when they evolve, which is really interesting. So in the actual games, it requires an Ice Stone, which are not currently in Pokemon Essentials. I will talk about how to add new stone evolutions in a future episode, but just know that right now, for the basics, Pokemon do retain their form number when they evolve. So here we have an Alolan Sandshrew. Let's take a look at it in our party. There it is. Since its form is 1, and we did those icons like I talked about, you can see it actually in the party there. Cool. And he's Ice Steel. Perfect. His moves will still be the same as regular Sandshrew because we haven't modified the script to change his move list yet, but that's super easy to do. And yeah, so there is our Alolan Sandshrew. Cool. So now let me show off what I was talking about before. Let's use debugs to change his level to 21. Okay, cool. So if I use a rare candy on him right now, he will evolve to Sandslash, but he won't evolve into regular Sandslash. Oh, actually he will, because I haven't defined the multiple form for Sandslash yet. Let's do that real quick, and then let's show off the evolution. So what we can do is the same thing that Shellos and Gastrodon did, where this multiple form for Sandshrew is the exact same for Sandslash. So what we can do actually is multiforms.copy and make it so that way the multiple form of Sandshrew is the exact same definition for Slash, man. Cool. Apply. So now we have Alolan Sandshrew and Alolan Sandslash defined. They are both Ice Steel, and they will both be Alolan forms if you encounter them on Route 83. One thing that's really interesting to note, though, too, is once you catch a Pokemon that's an Alolan form, like on that route that you've defined, it will stay that way when you evolve it on a new route. So here we have our Alolan Sandshrew. We are on a new route, but he's still Alolan because it determines the form on his creation. So bag. I gave myself a ton of rare candies earlier, using on Sandshrew. So he should evolve now. Perfect. And even though we're not on map ID 83 anymore, we're on an entirely new map, his form number is still 1. So he evolves to Alolan Sandslash now. And there it is. And he learned Crush Claw too. Oh, nice. Very nice. And I also did the icon sprite for Sandslash, so in our team, since his form number is still 1, he uses this new art. So yeah, hopefully this episode helped you out. I may have been a little unclear and brisk in some of my explanations, but in general, all you need to know is that there are multiple ways to change Pokemon forms. If you want, you can change them with an event, similar to how Deoxys changes its form. So, you know, it changes... If there's a Deoxys in your team, it changes that Deoxys to form number 1, or form number 2, or form number 0. Ooh, another thing that I forgot to mention really fast is when you're defining a trainer, and you define the Pokemon on the trainer's team, you can actually set the form there too. So if you want to make a trainer that has an Alolan Pokemon and or a non-Alolan Pokemon, you can do that. In fact, I'm going to do a brief cut right here, and then show you that. Alright, so I've gone and made a trainer who has a Sandshrew of Alolan form and a Sandshrew that is regular form. And the way that you go and do this, a really good example is to go up to the very top and copy the Geodude and Onix that have been defined for Brock's team. But essentially, the 10th value is the number of the form. So the first value is the name, and then the level, and then the hold item, and then the move 1, move 2, move 3, move 4, the ability, the gender, and then the form. So another good way to remember is it's right after the gender, so male or M or F for male or female. But yeah, this number right here, 1, 0, 2, it determines the form of that trainer's Pokemon. By default, if you leave it empty, it's 0. So let's go battle this guy right now. His name is Psychic Owl. Owl is in Alola. And we'll show that off. So by my calculations, he should have an Alolan Sandshrew first, and then once that is defeated, he'll throw out a regular Sandshrew. So yeah. Other than that though, I think that's really the end of this video. Hopefully everything was clear and understandable. I highly, highly recommend you go and look at all those scripts because there is so much to cover. and so much to learn from. So definitely go and read all of those. See how they've done the definitions for other Pokemon. That will really help you. And also, look, here it is. Here's his first Pokemon, which is Alolan Sandshrew, which is form number 1. Cool. So then the next Pokemon he'll throw is another Sandshrew of form 0. Hey, there it is. Cool. Working as intended perfectly. Great. So, yeah. Hopefully this episode helped you out. Hopefully you now understand how multiple forms work a little bit better. They can be a little tricky sometimes, but if you have an idea for a Pokemon that you want to do or how you want to study the multiple forms, then the best possible advice I can give you is to just open your script editor, do Control-Shift-F, and search for that Pokemon. Because you can really emulate most Pokemon by looking at how other Pokemon have already been defined. Like, for example, if I want to implement Wishy-Washy in the game and use its ability Schooling, then you would have to use forms. And a really great example is, once again, Darmanitan, where he changes his form in battle if his HP is below a certain amount. So instead of being below half, for Wishy-Washy you could do, like, below a quarter. So it would just be total HP over 4 instead of HP over 2. So yeah, definitely look at how all this stuff has already been defined. Definitely use the resources that I have linked in the description and be sure to credit them and be sure to, you know, just look at all the awesome stuff that's been made available for you. And definitely follow me on Twitch and Twitter and subscribe and have a good day and all that good stuff. I'm always so bad at endings, but yeah. Once again, hopefully this video helped you. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.